Azumarill has one of my favourite designs from Generation 2, but goodness me does it have terrible base stats. Let's see how it gets on. I can absolutely see why Game Freak gave this thing huge power in Generation 3. It really does need it. Azumarill's got a fantastically cute design, but it really doesn't have much else going for it. The base stats, as we'll see in a moment, are absolutely garbage. So in this run, we're absolutely not playing for a space in the top 10. Instead, we're just playing for the best possible time I can get on the first run with Azumarill. And just before we get started with this run, if you do enjoy the runs and you're not subscribed, please do consider clicking the subscribe button. It really would mean the world. Now let's take a look at the stats of our Marill. We are level 5 with 22 HP, we're holding a berry and our two moves are Tackle and Defense Curl. We've got 7 in attack, 10 in defense, 8 in special attack, 11 in special defense, and 9 in speed. So let's now get the graphics up, and as we can see, we have relatively good defensive stats, but we have just 20 in our offensive stats, and that's really going to make the game go slowly at the start. We don't have any great moves, we don't get stab until level 10, and even against this Pidgey, we could have been in danger of being knocked out. We got down to 12 HP, but we did eventually get through. And after a wee bit of grinding, we're ready to take on the first rival battle. He's got Chikorita in this case, because of course Chikorita is super effective against our Marill, and we'll be seeing that potentially in the Rival 2 and ahead. For now though, it's just a war of attrition. We're tail whipping as he's growling, and once we've got his defense as low as it possibly can, we get to tackling. We're hoping that we can survive a few more tackles from the Chikorita, which is exactly what we do, surviving on 8. And we can make our way towards our first gym together. This is Falkner's Flying type gym. We're level 15 at this point because Rollout is super effective against the birds, and he leads with Pidgey. It's a 2-shot with no accuracy drop against the Pidgey, but we might as well be mud-slapped because Rollout misses on the next turn. We knock out the Pidgeotto in 2 shots though, and we are through our first gym in 16 minutes and 54 seconds. Let's now take on Hiker Russell here in the Union Cave. We knock out all of his Pokemon in 1 shot with Water Gun, and it's against Hiker Russell we're going to grow to level 18. This is one of the few things that Marill has in its favour. It's in the fast experience group, and it evolves very quickly, but we still don't have the best base stats. We're going to be rocking just 50 in attack and special attack for the rest of the run now, but at this point of the run, that's not terrible. Combine that with Rollout and this gym battle's relatively trivial. Even the Scyther cannot put up any defense whatsoever as we knock out all of his Pokemon in a time of 23 minutes and 34 seconds. Of course, we can't celebrate for too long though because the dreaded Rival 2 is literally just around the corner. He's got a Bayleaf at this point, so I think our best option is going to be using Rollout. Let's see how we get on. We're going to start off with the Rollout against the Ghastly as it uses Spite. And now we're on to the Bayleaf. Razorleaf crits and takes us down to 48, however it's all over for the rival at this point because Zubat's weak to Rollout, and we get through him in a time of 24 minutes and 7 seconds. Let's try and keep this Rollout momentum going as we take on Whitney. She's our 3rd gym leader and she leads with Clefairy. Now our plan here is to raise our defences as much as possible against the Clefairy. It can't really hit us very hard unless it uses Super Fang just like that. That was a huge stroke of misfortune, so now we're on to the Miltank. I panic at this point because the plan's gone out of the window and I just start spamming any old move. And Lady Luck was smiling down upon us because we survive on 1 HP and we obtain the playing badge in 29 minutes and 42 seconds. Let's now move on to the Burnt Tower where Rival 3 is waiting for us. He's going to lead with Haunter and we've got a few moveset changes at this point. We now have Surf and Ice Punch. Surf makes light work of both the Haunter and the Magnemite, and we swap to Ice Punch for the Bayleaf. Poison Powder misses, so we grow to level 30, still on full health. Ice Punch is a 1-shot on the Zubat, and we are through the 3rd rival battle in just over 34.5 minutes. Now let's move on to our 4th gym leader together. This is Morty, the Ghost and Poison type specialist, who leads with Ghastly. I'm going to try and preserve our Surf PP as much as possible and only use it on the Pokemon that need it. In this case it's going to be the Gengar and the Haunters. Unfortunately for us, we do get sent to sleep by the Gengar. We were holding the Quick Claw because I was really hoping to save the Minceberry for Chuck. but that didn't work out, so we'll equip it for Morty instead. It's just as well, because we don't outspeed this Gengar, and we could have got sent to sleep twice in a row, and after the second hypnosis missed, it was all over for Morty. We obtained the Fog Badge in a time of 38 minutes and 23 seconds, and now we're actually going to change our routing slightly. We're doing Jasmine 5th because we don't have the bulk at the moment to withstand Chuck. It's only about 10 seconds time lost to take on Jasmine 5th, and her Steelix is going to be much less threatening than Chuck's Poliwrath, because all her Steelix can do is Iron Tail us, and that's not very effective. So while this battle might be a little bit scrappy, it will give us an extra level to take in at Chuck, and that level can make all the difference. We're level 38 as we defeat Jasmine in a time of 44 minutes and 4 seconds, and that one level could definitely turn the tables in our favour against Chuck. For this battle we've got Hidden Power Electric. It really is the best option for us against the Poliwrath. Rollout would have been terrible, and all our other moves really don't pack enough of a punch. Talking of not packing enough of a punch, nothing goes well for that Poliwrath. Dynamic Punch and Hypnosis miss, so we had a relatively easy Chuck battle and obtained the Storm Badge in 44 minutes 57. That could have been an awful lot harder though had things gone Chuck's way. Now we're on to Pryce. His seal has already been knocked out, and this was another battle where Hidden Power Electric really was handy. It made light work of his 2 water types, and we can finish off Piloswine with Surf. We grow to level 42 and we obtain the Glacier Badge in 49 minutes and 57 seconds. Let's now go underground to meet the rival for the 4th time, and he leads with Golbat. We use Ice Punch against the Golbat to knock it out in 1, and here comes Magnemite. Magnemite's not got any special defense, so it goes away with a Surf, and then it's going to be a 2-shot on the Meganium. By this point, Meganium's far too weak for Razor Leaf to mean anything against us. Haunter's a 1-shot with Surf, and his final Pokemon Sneasel has no defense whatsoever. A couple of Surfs knocks it out, and we defeat the rival for the 4th time. Let's move on to Blackthorn City, where Claire is waiting for us. She's a Dragon-type specialist who leads with 3 Dragonair. Now, all 3 Dragonair have the same weakness. Ice Punch is their Achilles heel, so we knock all of them out in 1 shot, and we can turn our attention to Kingdra. We really have to make sure that Claire doesn't get in a healing loop with this Kingdra, but of course we critical hit when we don't want it. Our accuracy keeps getting lowered and lowered and lowered, and the rest of this battle is just RNG. We get very lucky to land an Ice Punch to finish it off though, and we obtain the Rising Badge in a time of 1 hour, 5 minutes and 31 seconds. Let's now move on to Victory Road, where we'll meet the rival for the 5th and final time. This time he's going to lead with Sneasel, and this time we knock it out in 1 simple hit. Up next is Magneton. Magneton goes down with a single Surf as well, so he brings out his Meganium. Ice Punch is the order of the day once again for Meganium as Poison Powder misses, so we can look at the Golbat. We carry on with the Ice Punch against the Golbat and knock it out in 1, and he's only got 2 Pokemon left. Haunter confuses us with Confuse Ray, which was very mean of it, and then starts throwing balls of shadow at us, but once we break out of the confusion we can finish off the Kadabra. It's the first appearance for return of the run, and we knock it out in 1 to defeat the rival in a time of 1 hour, 9 minutes and 42 seconds. And with that, we're at the Pokémon League. And considering our base stats, I think we've done very well to have only 1 reset so far. But we'll say thank you to Kenya, to Abra, to Psyduck, and merci to Paris. They're going to have a lovely little rest while Azumarill takes on the Pokémon League. We'll buy our 4 full restores, we'll either need them or we won't. And let's take a look at our stats going into the league. We are level 56 with 204 HP. We're holding the Scamulet coin with Surf, Return, Hidden Power Electric, and Ice Punch. We've got 101 in attack, 134 in defense, 101 in special attack, 135 in special defense, but just 97 in speed. Those, of course, are our out-of-battle stats. We'll get a big buff in battle, and we'll see them against Will. He's our first Elite Four member, and he leads with Xatu. Now, Xatu should be fairly easy because we've got Ice Punch, so it is just 1 shot, and up next is Executor. We'll carry on with the Ice Punches, but this time it's a 2-shot. However, he doesn't Leech Seed, and that is really, really beneficial. We can knock out Jinx in a single return. She's got no defense whatsoever, and we've got Hidden Power Electric for the Slowbro. Even an Amnesia doesn't stop it being a 2-shot, and his final Pokemon is Xatu. Xatu's another simple 1-hit with Ice Punch, and we are through Will in a time of 1 hour, 11 minutes and 7 seconds. Koga's next, the Poison-type specialist who leads with Ariados. We're going to start off with a Surf against the Ariados and we knock it out in a single shot, and then we'll swap to return for the Venomoth. Venomoth supersonic misses so we're not confused for the rest of the battle, and we can turn our attention to Fortress. We take it deep into the red on turn 1 with Surf and finish it off on turn 2 without it going boom, and that brings us on to Muck. Muck minimalises, which means that it's very difficult to land our second Surf on it, and when we eventually land a hit, we low roll. So we're poisoned for the Crobat, and he uses double team. His plan is to stall. Fortunately for us though, he doesn't heal up, and that means we get through Koga and we can move on to Bruno. Bruno is the fighting type specialist of the Elite Four, and he leads with Hitmontop. I was fishing for a freeze with Ice Punch, but it didn't quite pay off, so we have to take the extra turn as he uses Dig. Once we're through the Hitmontop, he sends out Hitmonchan. Now Hitmonchan's not going to use Mach Punch because it has Thunder Punch on the learn set, but it has no special attack, so that was an ostensibly free Pokemon. One shot with return on the Hitmon League, and that brings us on to Machamp. Machamp's cross shot misses, so we knock it out with 2 Surfs, and then it's a final Surf for the Onix. Bruno was a lot easier than he could have been, getting through in 1:12:41. Let's move on to Karen. Once again, we're using the HP up trick against Karen to prevent Sand Attack, and once again we get confused. We are of course fishing for the freeze against the Umbreon, and there's that Sand Attack anyway. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, you get Sand Attacked, other times the strategy does actually pay off. Nothing's guaranteed in Generation 2, and we get paralysed from the Vileplume as well. It's been a bit of a disastrous Karen fight so far, but we're gonna persevere. We managed to miss against the Gengar, and then it licks us with a critical hit. We're at 149 HP as the Murkrow comes out, Feint Attack crits as well. We miss, Feint Attack hits for another crit, and we take the L and try again. Sometimes, I swear, this game throws everything at you all at once. That's definitely what happened against Karen there, and this time Umbreon's a 3-shot. Let's hope that we don't get paralysed off Vileplume. We get very lucky on critical hits, so at least we're at full speed for the rest of this battle. Gengar swears at us like normal, but we knock it out in a single Surf. We use Surf against the Murkrow, and we get to see the Houndoom. One Surf is all it takes to knock it out, and with the RNG going our way, we're through Karen on our second attempt in 1 hour, 14 minutes and 18 seconds. There's only one thing between us and the Hall of Fame now. It's Lance, the liar with the Flyers, and he leads with Gyarados. Now we do have that 4x super effective hidden power against the Gyarados, so we knock it out in 1 shot, and we can move on to the Dragonite. Yet again, we've got a 4x super effective move, this time Ice Punch, so both of his level 47 Thunder Waving Dragonites are no issue. He's going to send out Dragonite number 3 next, because he sees the weakness to water with both the Aerodactyl and the Charizard. Rock Slide crits because we can't catch a break in this league, but we knock out the Aerodactyl in 1, and then we outspeed the Charizard to knock it out in a single hit, and we are through Lance in a time of 1 hour, 15 minutes and 9 seconds. And our final league time for this run is 1 hour, 15 minutes and 25 seconds. It's been a very scrappy first half so far, but don't you dare go anywhere, there's still more to come, because Kanto is next. And we rejoin the action here in Vermilion City, where the first thing we do in Kanto is the last thing we do in Johto. We're going to get another rare candy, this time from the chairman of the Pokemon Fan Club. And with that safely tucked away in our bag, we'll surf that little bit of ocean to get into Lieutenant Surge's gym. He is our first Cantonian gym leader, and he leads with a Raichu. Now this was a bit of a mistake to take on first. I for some reason thought we'd be able to one-shot that Raichu with Surf. We get paralysed and we have to take a very early reset. I got stubborn though, and I decided to persevere holding the paralysed Cure Berry, so we get through the Raichu and we're on to the Magneton. It really was a mistake taking on Surge first, and I'm going to talk about routing in a couple of moments, but first I just want to look at this battle. It really was one of those disastrous battles where I should have thrown in the towel and I should have rerouted. We're on 40 HP for the Electrode, we managed to hit the first one, and the second one is going to double team as well. We hit through, so thank goodness we get through that battle on our second reset, but we took quite a time loss there. Now that brings us very nicely onto what I want to talk about in this Kanto section. It's routing, risks, resets and reflection. It is all the R's for this one. Now, in this particular run, I did change my routing in the Johto section, of course. We went to Jasmine before we went to Chuck. and I really should have taken some time to consider the order of the Kantonian gym leaders. Very often you get into that mindset that Kanto is easy, the only threat is blue, but when you come in with a Pokemon as low base stat total as Azumarill, it really can bite you in the bum. So what I learnt from this is I really need to take my time in that bit between the League and doing Kanto to think what is the best order of the gyms. What's going to get us the best time, because movement is only half of the story. The other half of the story, of course, is how will the battles go. We see it with now the more flexible Johto routing. We've got about 3 or 4 different routes we can take through Johto, and we need to do the same with Kanto. Of course, we have recently rerouted Kanto to start with Surge, and in this instance I think it would have been better to just take on the old Kanto routing instead. But that was a mistake that I made, and it was of course the first attempt with Azumarill, so we have to live with that penalty. It was all the more frustrating because just a couple of runs before I'd made the same mistake with Lapras. It just goes to show that none of us runners is perfect, we all make mistakes, and quite often we make the same mistake multiple times until it sinks in. And that brings us on to risks versus reward. Sometimes it pays off to take a risk. We've seen it before when we don't go in with a mint berry at Morty, and we can save it for Chuck, and we end up saving time overall because we do the very quick middle part of Johto. The routing we can take is where we avoid Ecritique's Pokemon Center in its 10-second time penalty. We get through Rival 3 straight away, we get through Morty, and then we can go and do the Lighthouse Chuck and Jasmine in one single section. It makes the run a lot less bitty, and it makes the run go an awful lot quicker because you're doing less backtracking. If that's possible on a run, I'm absolutely going to do it from now on. But of course, every time it's going to be a risk, because you need a learn set and base stats that can get through Rival 3, Morty, Chuck and Jasmine without hidden power. It's definitely possible on a lot of Pokemon, and those are the ones whose redos I'm going to be prioritising. So look out for those in the not too distant future. And what I also want to know is, do you do challenge runs yourself? Of course, if you haven't had the ability to do challenge runs, we now have that new patch where you can set your starters and hidden power type in the game itself. There is a link in the description to the video taking you through all the features of that patch. And if you are doing challenge runs, let me know, what is your routing like? It's always good to know what other people who do the runs do, because you can always learn something off everybody. But now let's rejoin the action at Blue, where he's going to lead with Pidgeot. He is of course our final gym leader together, and Pidgeot takes 2 shots to knock out with Ice Beam, and we can move on to the Executor. Executor ends up being a bit of a pest and sets up a sunny day, so we trap him in a healing loop. The longer we can go without that Executor fainting, the better, because that means the sun will fade when we need it to. We don't need Surf against the Executor, and then Surf's not going to one-shot the Alakazam anyway. We knew he was going to set up Reflect, but then he disables us, and that was the worst possible outcome for this battle, because it means we have to swap to Ice Beam. We managed to knock out Alakazam in a couple of hits, and out comes Gyarados. Thank goodness we don't need Surf against the Gyarados, because it's still disabled as we're onto the Rhydon. The Reflect fades and Surf is still disabled, so we'll go to our backup Ice Beam and we just about one-shot it. That, I believe, was a range, but now we don't have Surf for Arcanine. We're going to have to pivot to return, and yet still Surf is disabled. We take Arcanine deep into the red as Surf finally gets unlocked to pick it off, and we are through Blue in a time of 1 hour 32 minutes and 27 seconds. Blue played an absolute blinder in that battle. Let's see how Red does. He's the final battle of the game and he leads with Pikachu. We're not worried about Charm at the beginning of this battle, we're just fishing to see how hard all of his Pokemon are. We know we're not going to get through at level 70, but this gives us good info for later down the line. And in an on-running theme in this run, Thunder crits us and one-shots us to knock us out. We're now using our first 3 rare candies, going up to level 73, and as you can see we can actually tank a Thunder relatively well. It was just that critical hit that stopped us getting past the Pikachu last time. This is the Pokemon I'm worried about though. This Venusaur could be very, very pesky. It's not a 2-shot with Ice Beam, so up we go to level 76. We've used 60% of our rare candies at this point, and yet we still don't outspeed the Pikachu. We're not going to outspeed the Pikachu for the rest of the battle because his base speed is just too high. We get through without taking any damage though when we are back onto the Venusaur. He uses Sunny Day and that means we can't even freeze any Pokemon for the next 5 turns. We get through the Venusaur and we can fish to see just how bad this Espeon is. Returns our best move against the Espeon, but a pair of Psychics knocks us out. Let's use our final 4 rare candies and get up to level 80, and we'll see just how bad red is now. We start off with a Surf against the Pikachu, and this time we one-shot it. We're on full health for the Venusaur, and we are fishing for the freeze. We don't get it though, and Sunny Day comes out, so there's no freezing that Snorlax, providing we get through the Espeon. We use Return on turn 1 as he uses Psychic to deal a lot of damage, but at least we know we can 2-shot Espeon. That's very good knowledge to have because it means we know we can get through to Snorlax in relatively good shape. This one's a bit of a non-starter though because the sun is up. That means that Surf is very nerfed. We also couldn't freeze on turn 1 before the Amnesia. We fish for a freeze, it doesn't happen, and we're back to square one against the Pikachu. We learn on this attempt that Pikachu is still a range even at level 80, but he healing loops and we're back onto Venusaur. We see if we can freeze the Venusaur, but we crit instead and knock it out in 1. We're on full health for the Espeon and we can Surf instead. Surf's a 2-shot, Reflect being up means we can't return, and we only took 1 lot of psychic damage. Now we are praying for the freeze. If we get a freeze, we are pretty much guaranteed the win, but we try and try and try to no avail. This Snorlax just does not want to get chilly. No matter what we do, it is just not playing ball. We swap to Return and critical hit against the Snorlax, but Snore is chipping away at us. But the positive we can take from this is at least we get to see how bad Blastoise and Charizard are. We're going to try our best with Hidden Power Electric on the Blastoise, but it's going to be a 3-shot. Surf critical hits because of course it critical hits, and we get knocked out. Let's try once more. This is now reset number 25. We've had 22 attempts at red. On this attempt, we freeze the Venusaur. It's the first good bit of luck we've had against the Venusaur in a very long time. I start spamming Surf to make sure that we're at full health, and we're back onto the Espeon. Espeon, of course, is going to use Reflect on turn 1. We know that by that point, and we get through to the Snorlax on 229 HP. We once again fish for that freeze. The Reflect is up, so we can't use physical moves, and we get paralysed by Body Slam. It's at this point we change tactic ever so slightly. I tried with Dynamic Punch on the Snorlax and it didn't work, so we're swapping to Rain Dance. If we can eliminate the sun, then at least we have the chance to freeze on every single turn against the Snorlax. We get through the Pikachu and the play is to Ice Beam, Rain Dance, Ice Beam against the Venusaur. He'll think that he can take in Sunlight and we can knock it out on turn number 3. The rain is up for the Espeon. We use an Ice Beam on turn 1, we take that psychic damage, and then we knock it out with Surf on turn 2. Here comes the Snorlax, and yet again, we get paralysed. Our luck has been terrible. So we'll try once more. We don't care about getting charmed at this point, we're going purely special. We just have to hope for the freeze against the Snorlax. This is our only way out of Red Purgatory. We have the play for his first 3 Pokemon, but that Pokemon number 4, the Snorlax, has been a thorn in our side. We've had terrible RNG the entire way through this run, and finally on Ice Beam number 32 against the Snorlax, we get the luck and we get the freeze. That means we can then set up a Rain Dance and try our best to chip away at this Snorlax's health. As long as it stays frozen, we can knock it out and a lucky critical hit saves the day. We're back onto the Blastoise, but this time we're on full health. Surf is barely tickling us, so we can use 3 Hidden Power Electrics to knock it out, and we will get to see the Charizard for the first time in this red fight. We use Surf against the Charizard as Flamethrower barely tickles us. We take it deep into the red on turn 1, we knock it out on turn number 2, and we are finally through red in a time of 1 hour, 48 minutes and 30 seconds. Goodness me, that was a tricky run. The RNG was really bad throughout, but we get a place in 46th place on the leaderboard, just ahead of Starmie, who had a very similar run through the game, and that does put Ninetales in 50th place in the page 3 drop zone. The Bumhead Fireduck is now leading up page 3 in 51st place, and it's still poor Shuckle down there in 77th place. This Azumarill run has made no difference to the front page of the leaderboard. Girafarig in first, Scyther in second, and Lapras in third. But with that, we are done for another run. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please do leave it a like. If you want to see more runs just like this, then click the subscribe button. If you've got anything to say, leave it in the comments down below. I have a Patreon at patreon.com/trainersquidgy. And until next time when we're running Venomoth through the Gen 2 Gauntlet, I'll say thank you all so much for watching. It's been a pleasure as always, and I'll see you all very, very soon.